Starting it with light, huh, baby?
What's that? Yeah.
I don't know.
Start,
Maybe
well,
start tomorrow instead. Huh?
starting it out light here. All right, Genesis chapter 19, we'll pick up here. So now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face towards the ground. And he said, "Hear now, my lords, please turn into your servant's house and spend the night, and wash your feet, then you may arise early and go on your way." So we have a very similar reaction. Lot's reaction is very similar to that of Abraham. There was something about these three men that definitely got their attention. It doesn't say what that is. Was it their appearance? How did he know? Or did Lot, is this that classic Middle Eastern hospitality we're always hearing about? Is this something he would have done to any stranger? What do you think? Any ideas?
Not really. I don't know tons about Middle Eastern culture.
What we do learn here is that we know that when Lot and Abraham, when they were having trouble with their herdsmen, of course they separated, and Lot chose the well-watered valley that was very close to Sodom. And the thing that's kind of interesting, you can kind of surmise here, is that how destructive those influences were to the early people, the licentiousness and the things that were going on in the city. Lot was probably set up his camp, maybe a mile or two, maybe several miles outside of town. And as the time goes on, he finds himself closer and closer and closer until ultimately he's in the belly of the beast. He's actually in the city itself. Mm-hmm. Those conveniences, and you start.
The city expanded around their people.
That could have been as well. We don't know, but what we do know is that Lot is in the heart of the city now with his family. So these two.
Did Lot just take his people into it like 5 years ago, though?
It doesn't say. It doesn't say. But all we know is he's in there now. So he convinces them to come in and spend the night with him. And when the morning comes, that they may go. Now, why was he so anxious to get these men undercover? Any ideas? Did he know what was going on in that city? Did he know what to expect at nighttime?
Probably.
Right. So seems as if he was a very just man, and he was concerned about these strangers. Maybe he knew, maybe he knew they were destroying angels, and he was hoping that he could shelter them and they wouldn't see what was going on, and that they would go on their way next morning.
If he didn't condone all that behavior, it's hard to believe that he would be living in the middle of it.
Yeah. You actions speak louder than words.
Unless he was a missionary-minded person, but then we see later with the discussion of his daughters that does not seem to be the case.
Yeah, and this is the whole problem, with the cities, and we have to keep in mind the context of this whole thing. What was God trying to produce? What was God trying to make happen when he called Abraham and his family out of Ur and established him and gave him the prophecy and gave him the promise of the land and of making a great nation out of him? What was the point of all of this? Why did he pull Abraham away from his family and start this whole ball rolling?
Maybe so the Israelites could create their own nation?
That's part of it. Why is that important?
So that they wouldn't be under the control of anyone else.
Under the influence of the heathens. One thing, as I was saying the other day, is that what the Bible does not go into a lot of detail of how wicked times were, what was going on, the sacrificing of children, the abusing of women and children. These things were repugnant to God, and God is trying to produce a people that is going to be an example to the rest of the world of what good morals, good character, that's part of it, but the main reason is he ultimately needs to produce a people that can produce Christ. All of this whole thread that winds through the Old Testament is all about the coming Messiah who will be a bridge for people who have been separated, humanity who has been separated from God, a bridge back. And so the contamination of this line is very dire. And the reason why he wanted them separated from these heathens was for the big plan. Maybe Abraham doesn't quite see the big plan yet. He's going to see it here pretty soon. So we'll continue on. Well, he invited them in, and they said, "No, but we will spend the night in the open square." Now, that was commonly done. If you didn't have friends or family, and you were traveling from city to city, it was dangerous on the road. Many accounts of people being robbed and murdered, killed, all sorts of bad things. You didn't want to spend the night on the open road. It was not safe. But you could. One of the customs of the day was, if you were coming to a city of your own people, of the Israelites, that you could be inside the gates and you could be secure. So these men say, "No, we're going to stay on the open square."
Well, these weren't even their own people. I mean, it would just be any people.
That's right.
I mean, it could be
That's
just a
right.
reputable community, right?
That's right. But he insisted strongly, so they turned into him and they entered his house, and then he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Now before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every quarter, surrounded the house. They called to Lot and said to him, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them carnally." So this is pretty graphic, but basically a mob formed around the house, and so deprived was this city that all of the men, even the boys, came out to take these men out and to rape them. Homosexual rape. This is the level of depravity that was taking place in the city at the time. And Lot is living in the city, raising his daughters there. So Lot went out to them through the doorway, shut the door behind him, and said, "Please, my brethren, do not do so wickedly. See, now I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Please let me bring them out as to you, that you may do to them as you wish. Only do nothing to these men, since this is the reason they have come under the shadow of my roof." So what do we do with that? If you were a husband, had a family, you had 2 daughters that you loved more than anything, and a mob came to the door, wanting to send a couple strangers out that you didn't know, would you be inclined to send your daughters out and shelter the strangers? This is a hard one. This is a hard one to deal with. I like to think Lot had a perfect understanding of what their mission was and what was going to happen. And he maybe thought to himself, would it be better to pacify this crowd at the expense of my 2 daughters, knowing that it will save the entire city from destruction? Is that the case? Is it that women were considered expendable, not as important as men? Basically, maybe, some of the women in some cultures have not been held in the highest regard, maybe a notch or 2 above their livestock. Was this the case in those days?
We notice that he doesn't say, "I'll go."
He didn't offer himself, did he?
No.
No, he didn't offer himself. And I don't know that anyone was expecting them to, but this is what he did. Now you got to keep in mind when you read these things, this is not God condoning the actions. This is simply a written record of what took place for our benefit. What Lot did, his decisions, by no means are no means condoned by God. It's just a record of what happened. And they said, "Stand back." Then they said, "This one came to stay here, and he keeps acting as a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them." So right there, and that proves your point right there, that he was a stranger there. They allowed him to live there, probably because he had a ton of money from Abraham's conquest, but they did not see him as their own. They were definitely a separate people, and they weren't really interested on this usurper, this foreigner coming in and telling them what to do.
Yeah, mine says, "This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them."
Yeah. So they pressed hard against the man, Lot, and came near to breaking down the door. But the men reached out, these are the destroying angels, their hands, and they pulled Lot into the house with them. They shut the door, and they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they became weary trying to find the door. So this is quite a thing. This shows that their depravity, even to the point where here they're all stricken with blindness, and rather than thinking to themselves, maybe we're on the wrong path, maybe this is something we shouldn't be doing, they continued groping for the door.
I wonder if it wasn't like a literal blindness. I wonder if it was more of a like the angels hid the door in front of their eyes. So they created like a mirage in front of the doors that was solid or something like that. So the door looked like the rest of the wall.
It says blindness.
Yeah, but the Bible isn't like super detailed on a lot of things.
I don't know, and I don't know that it matters. All it knows it matters is that they were they were unable to continue on as well as they had been before. Then the men said to Lot, "Have you anyone else here, son-in-law, your sons, your daughters, and whomever you have in the city? Take them out of this place, for we will destroy this place, because the outcry against them has grown great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it." So basically, what did they say there? What are they telling Lot?
They told him to leave the city because they were going to destroy the city.
So this is a hard thing. He had been completely established there with his wealth. We can assume that he probably had lived in one of the nicer neighborhoods. His kids are established. They've got their friends there. His wife is established. She's got her friends there. It's not a small thing, especially when you weren't prepared. You haven't even packed anything for someone to come to your house and say you need to leave in about 60 seconds. That would be a difficult decision, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if you don't know who these guys are, right? Are they telling the truth? Is this, what's going to happen when I leave and these men are going to break in the door and take everything I had? This is a hard thing for him to hear. So Lot went out, and he spoke to his son-in-law who had married his daughters and said, "Get up, get out of this place, but the Lord will destroy this city." But to his son-in-law, he seemed to be joking. So it sounds like and this was something that he should not have done. It sounds like he had even intermarried his children with this heathen nation. Can you get that impression? And their son-in-laws laughed at him. They're like, "What are you talking about? This isn't going to happen, you crazy old man. Leave us alone. We're not going anywhere." When the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry, saying, "Arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city." So it's quite a bit of time goes on, right? They came in the evening, right, when everyone was getting ready to go to bed. So all night they must have been up. Were they packing? Were they trying to find their son-in-laws? Were they trying to find their daughters? We don't know. But this is going on for some time, and the angels are continuing to urge him to get his and get out. Good morning, my darling. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. Come here, give me a hug. You got your bottle this morning? You want to listen to the book?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to sit down and be quiet then. Sit over there by Jack.
Where are you at, babe?
Good topics for a small baby.
Where are you at?
We are 15. When the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry, saying, "Arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in your punishment of the city." And while he lingered, the men took hold of his hand and his wife's hand and the hand of his 2 daughters, and the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out to set him aside in the city. So it came to pass, when they had brought them outside, that he said, "Escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere on the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be destroyed."
What do you think about that whole thing that he's hesitating?
Well, Jack and I were just talking about that. They're established. It looks like in here that we have Lot's given his daughters have intermarried with 2 men of the city. So he has that connection. They probably have a very expensive house coming out of all of the wealth that they had from the early plunder. His daughters have friends there. His wife's got friends there. They've got ties to the community. It's not an easy thing, and it's not like they had any time to prepare. these two strangers showed up and said, "You need to go now." But we find the next morning, all night long, they're doing this. He was so reluctant to leave that it says that the angels actually had to physically drag them out of the city to prod them, to get them going. They are not wanting to do this. They're very reluctant. Then Lot said to them, "Please, no, my lords, indeed, now your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have increased your mercy, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I cannot escape to the mountains, lest some evil overtake me and I die. So now this city is near enough to flee to. It is only a little one. Please let me escape there. Is it not a little one, and my soul shall live?" So he's gotten comfortable. He's probably wealthy, comfortable. He's not really liking the idea of an extended camping trip in a cave. And you can imagine the three women he's got to live with in this are going to be blaming him for their lot in life. Right? He's seeing the whole thing unfold. So he comes up with a second plan. He's a chip off the old block with Abraham. Abraham's always negotiating. So he's negotiating with these two, even in the very jaws of destruction and death, right? There's a little town over here. Wouldn't it be better? He's got everything. He had all night to get ready. He's got all of his gold and silver, and he's, ready to feather his nest. He's thinking, if we could just go to that city down the way, things are going to be a lot nicer for us. We can, the restaurant, we can rent a nice house. It's.
The city was what, Gomorrah?
We don't know.
Gomorrah got ruined too.
We'll see, but that's what he wants to do.
Zoar.
Is it Zoar?
Yeah.
That my soul shall live. And this is, these are the men, they're held up as the pillars of faith, and we see Abraham, he has his struggles. And we see Lot here, they told him, you'll be fine, you'll be up in the mountains. So he's like, well, maybe not. And he said to him, "See, I have favored you concerning this thing also, and that I will not overthrow this city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I cannot do anything until you arrive there." Therefore, the name of the city was called Zoar. So it almost gives the impression here that the small city, maybe a suburb of Sodom, was also slated for destruction.
I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm so excited too. And we see over and over again how many times the faith of one. You want to sit with me?
I'm so excited, Mom. Are you so excited?
Yes, I am.
So we see here again, and it happens so many times, and I wonder today how often these things happen, is that the faith of one righteous person oftentimes benefits an entire, not only a family or a community. You can have one person in a household, a large household, that is a friend of God, who has that relationship and prays, and the blessings that come to this one person, of course, overflow and affect everyone else. Or a righteous neighbor, that the blessings, whether it could be weather or crops, or it's so many times we see, and the whole time them not knowing that they're receiving these things is quite interesting. So the sun had risen upon the earth, so the mornings come. When Lot entered Zoar, then the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of heaven. So he overthrew those cities, all the plain, all the inhabitants, all the cities, and what grew on the ground. But on their way out, as they were leaving, and the firestorm and the hailstorm and the sulfur is coming down, destroying their home and their city and their friends, and don't let us not forget their husbands who didn't leave.
Wait, where did you get that they were married?
A little bit earlier when you went upstairs.
Okay.
Well, they probably didn't really care about their husbands that much.
Oh, they were pledged to marry,
Yeah.
so they were fiancés. They weren't married.
They were engaged?
What do you mean?
Okay.
Well, they weren't engaged.
Mom,
Their
what do you
parents
mean?
had engaged them.
Well, that's the way it used to go, Jack.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Even still today.
What do you mean?
Well, looks like the sweet loaf is ready to go, so we'll cut that short. We'll pick up tomorrow.
What do you mean?
You come here. You come here. You are...
What do you mean?
Come here and I'll tell you. I'll whisper it to you. Zacchaeus was too short to see, but who saw him and who came to tea? Who saw that small man in his tree? Who loved that man who couldn't see? His name is?
Who's that?
Who is that? What's his name?
I don't know.
It's Jesus. Yes, it's true. Who does he love?
Jesus loved me.
Why, he loves you.